Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and welcome to another riveting episode of Two Truths and a Lie. Number 1, I am Tessellating Hexagons. Number 2, my vocal warm-up for recording this video was a song from the musical Tootsie. And number 3, I'm going to talk about Hungary at Eurovision 2021. If you know anything about national flags, and or you read the title of this video, you'll know that actually option 3 was the lie. It's Bulgaria's time to shine. What was the point of that intro? I don't know, I just felt like spicing it up. Also, April Fool's Day was like 3 days ago at the time of recording, so I'm technically relevant. But enough sweet nothingses of dubious sweetness on my part. So Bulgaria, what do you got? We have, once again, Victoria Georgieva, who was internally selected last year, and she's back again this year for reasons that we will delve into later on, because Bulgaria kind of has a thing. I'll talk about it later on. And the song Growing Up is Getting Old. It was chosen from a not quite national final, and I do kind of feel bad, because I'm fairly sure that the Bulgarian delegation had kind of hoped that I would weigh in on the selection, but I've tried to keep my distance from all of this year's songs before they were chosen, so I do apologise there, because BG_Eurovision, they are a brilliant Twitter account, go and follow them, they have great online presence, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So yes, Growing Up is Getting Old. It's fully in English, music and lyrics by Victoria herself, as well as Maya Nalani, Helena Larsson, and Oliver Björkvall. And, yeah, some people said that this was the weakest song in the lineup of potential candidate entries, and if that's the case, how strong was the strongest one? But I'm getting ahead of myself. If you watched my reviews last year, you might well recall that Victoria's previous entry, Tears Getting Sober, didn't really resonate with me right away, while it was one of the fan favourites to win the whole contest with everyone else, and I do think it was one of the contenders. This year, it almost seems like the script has been completely flipped. The fans seem relatively lukewarm towards this song, but it hit me like a full-sized freight train. And for the record, Tears Getting Sober did grow on me, it just took a couple of months to get there. This year, we have a tender, introspective song that, or so I feel, will either massively miss the mark or hit a raw nerve, depending on who's listening to it. So I fully understand why this might end up dividing people. Also, while people did compare her style to Billie Eilish last year, I do think that this is relatively more similar to Billie Eilish's style than Tears Getting Sober was, but I don't see that as a weakness per se. Some people might find a lack of identity in this song as a consequence, but no, I think it stands on its own well enough. Besides, Billie's been so aggressively commercialised lately, so it's keeping a genre alive that corporate America doesn't want you to hear. Now then, beginning at the beginning of the song. As seems to be one of Victoria's strengths as an artist, this song goes in hard with its atmosphere. This song is all about tenderness and self-directed vulnerability, and I think the overall arrangement, while minimal from start to finish, conveys this brilliantly. There's the persistent sort of ticking of a clock throughout the first verse, which grounds the song, it connects it to a mundane, real-world situation that almost anyone can relate to. And the way the music fades out while Victoria continues to sing at the end could also be considered a kind of meta-gesture of sorts. After all, the song is from one's own perspective, talking to oneself, so even without the music, it would make sense to continue to sing for, well, a number of reasons. To pick up on something that I said just now and refine it a little bit further, by the way, this is a very relatable, very real song. It deals with complex and difficult emotions at their most raw, and it's the sort of thing that a lot of people have trouble dealing with or finding the vocabulary to properly discuss. In a way, this song could well be considered a voice for people who have yet to find their own, saying things that they've yet to fully figure out how to articulate. I have to tip my hat to that. In not so many words, Victoria is a great ambassador for the cause, if that truly is the idea. I have no trouble whatsoever in believing that this performance comes from the heart, that she herself 100% believes her own words and needs to hear her own words. It truly sounds like she has lived through what she's singing about and has the empathy and compassion to want to use this platform of expression to offer help or solidarity or even just understanding to people who are having a harder time coming out the other side of it than she has. People who are still struggling to achieve what she has achieved in terms of emotional coming full circle. It makes for a very authentic experience, basically, and that is never a bad thing. And, of course, we have to talk about the lyrics here. They are a bit of a two-sided thing, for reasons I'll come back to, but on the whole, this song is poetry, plain and simple. At its most complex, it effortlessly puts into words feelings that are really hard to pin down, and at its simplest, it hits us with not only the title of the song, but an inversion of the title, swapping the two gerunds around to completely change the meaning while still fitting the tone and message of the song. That is to say, growing up is getting old reflects the fatiguing nature of having to be in a constant state of flux, constantly having to be more mature than a minute ago, and thus not having time to reflect or heal, whilst also being a literal statement that the definition of growing up is becoming older, getting old. But also, when that's inverted to getting up is growing old, that shows how exhausting it is having to keep bouncing back time and time again while bearing more and more unhealed scars each time. I have to applaud that they were able to embed an entire essay of deeper meaning into such relatively straightforward words. Very well done there, Bulgaria. In before I get a comment that says, nah bro, you're just overthinking it. Anyway, that said, I find this song to be a case where it is particularly easy to understand if someone isn't that big of a fan of it. For one thing, there is the arrangement, like I highlighted earlier. If you require higher levels of energy in order to keep your attention or to entertain you, then this song is unlikely to work for you. The tempo is relatively slow, the instruments don't convey a huge amount of energy because the whole piece focuses on accommodating more somber emotions. If you're not trying to hear that, then you probably won't be a fan. This isn't here to, get the adrenaline going. This song is here as a piece of self-reflection. If that doesn't entertain you, then this song won't entertain you, and that's fair enough. Similarly, there's the lyrics. While I do think that they're great, I do also understand if someone were to listen to them and hear just words. Whether it's due to the existential nature of the whole thing or the complexity of how it's worded, you just might not connect to what's going on here. And beyond that, there's also the way that the title is played with, as I was just talking about. If you don't speak English natively, or even if you do, to be honest, you might miss the intended nuances of flipping the words around, so it might just sound like needless repetition, in a way not entirely dissimilar to the Czech entry of 2019 now that I think about it. You see what I mean? You might just hear, oh, growing up is getting old, oh, she said the same words again but slightly different, but the meaning hasn't changed. It has, but that might be lost on people who aren't sort of tuned into what the lyrics are going for, and that is fair enough. On a stylistic front, meanwhile, there's the ending of the song. I find it to be effective and mood appropriate that she continues to sing even after the music ends, but that doesn't mean that I particularly like it as a choice. Don't get me wrong, it's executed very well. It's just a very risky move that not everyone is likely to appreciate, and I am among such people. If nothing else, I fear the possibility of it coming across as awkward on the night, because there's this unspoken feeling at Eurovision that when the music stops, the song stops. That isn't the case here, which means that some people might feel that the song drags its feet on ending, and that impatience may well usurp the intended emotional impact there. Your mileage is inevitably going to vary. For now though, giving this song numbers, I will be inclined to kick things off with a personal 9 out of 10, which sort of surprises me. After all, I connect to this song very, very deeply, so I'm surprised that that score isn't higher, but at the same time, Victoria's previous entry took a very long time to grow on me, so it did grow on me, it just took several months. So I'm surprised that that score isn't lower in the here and now. When all is said and done, though, this is something of a lasagna song, except the feeling that I need in order to appreciate it happens fairly frequently. My inner child does crave something a bit more high energy than this, I won't deny, but not every song has to bend to those whims. This song is quiet, it's melancholy, it's reflective, and that strikes a serious personal chord with me. It doesn't need to cheapen itself with gimmicks on top of that in order to make that connection. On the technical side, meanwhile, the juror in my head is making awful sounds. That's like 11 years old. Kudos to you if you get that reference. It has landed on a low 10 out of 10. That doesn't mean that this song is technical perfection incarnate. because, as I said, it's a low 10, but it does do a lot right, and I can't not acknowledge that. The lyrics are, as I said, poetry in motion, but they do run the risk of their subtleties being lost on a lot of people. The musical arrangement is tender and atmospheric, but it runs the risk of being viewed as too simplistic. When all's said and done, there isn't anything I would advocate changing about this song by any means. I just want to make it clear that it's very good and very jury-friendly, but even by those standards, it isn't immune to critique or dissenting opinions. So if you're not on board with this song, that's entirely fair enough. Now then, looking back over the last 12 months, in all fairness, Bulgaria have been in a bit of a precarious position lately, so I would be all set to be forgiving towards them regarding dealing with 2020 going belly up like it did. But as it turns out, they don't need my sympathy. They've already done a great job in cleaning up after the cancellation. For some context, Bulgaria withdrew from the contest in 2019 due to funding issues and restructuring at the broadcaster, and it was at least partially thanks to sponsorship that they were able to return last year at all. Naturally, one would expect the sudden cancellation of the contest might put that sponsorship, that partnership, and therefore their continued participation in jeopardy, but luckily they were able to keep that working relationship alive, and so they were able to stick to their guns and send Victoria again. After all, Team Bulgaria were perhaps the most vocal last year about carrying over as much as possible from the ashes of 2020, so it's great to see them leading by example. That is very much the spirit there, Bulgaria. But all the spirit in the world won't guarantee you a spot in the grand final, so do I fancy Bulgaria's chances? Well, I am mostly confident that Victoria will indeed finish in the top 10 of her semi-final when all is said and done, since this is, as I said, a highly jury-friendly song with a performance that is more than likely to match. And it's sure to attract televote points for sure for both its slick production and its deep-cutting relatability. If nothing else, Bulgaria is sort of a sweetheart at Eurovision these days, so I am inclined to err on the side of optimism. Of course, the only guaranteed finalists are the ones who are already auto-qualified, because Eurovision, anything can happen. Outside those 6 countries, nothing is set in stone. People might not connect to this song, its minimalist production might miss the mark on the night. I don't think Victoria's in any danger, even performing immediately before Finland in the running order no less, but the possibility is always worth acknowledging nonetheless. But I'm fairly confident this is going to give the scoreboard a run for its money when all's said and done. But that's just my opinion, that's just my thoughts, that's just a jumper I'm wearing that was made by my mother. What do you lovely people think? As ever, I encourage you to listen to the song for yourself. It's in the iCard, it's in the end slate, it's in the video description. Hear it for yourself, think for yourself, and if you feel like sharing your opinions, by all means, the comments are open. In the meantime though, very good luck to you, Victoria, and to Team Bulgaria as a whole, and who knows? Maybe we'll be heading to Sofia for Eurovision next year? I don't know. Some people think it's likely. The betting odds are in discussions about it. Who knows? I expect to see you in the final at the very least, though, so see you then.